we are having a blockchain conference in the World Expo, which is an esteemed event that has been happening for more than 170 years. The happening of this event or this conference of blockchain in this esteemed event itself signifies the importance of how this technology blockchain has evolved in the last 10 years.
Because we're having a lot of reflections coming on your blazer. Yes.
Come closer.
Yes.
We go all there?
Okay.
Like this?
A lot of reflection. Okay, so now I think she needs to sit at the same place as well.
There?
Yeah.
Like this? The link comes to.
Actually, the reflection is from within. So wherever they go, they keep shining.
Okay.
Are we good?
You want Rishabh to shift?
Are we good?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, as I was saying, the presence of this conference in this event, in this esteemed event, itself shows how much we have evolved and how far this technology has come. After listening to all these pitches and having these insightful sessions, let's meet the people who have actually contributed to the growth of this ecosystem. And for this, we have our esteemed speakers today, Mr. Rico and Baiba. Ladies first, we'll go with Baiba. Please help us understand and share your thoughts on how do you see this evolution of blockchain in the last 10 years from Bitcoin white paper to what we see today? And tell us about the work that you've been doing in this ecosystem.
Yeah, maybe I can just explain or tell my story, how I ended up in this ecosystem. And as I told, so I've been practicing in private law and international business transactions, and also consulting clients where to invest, how to invest, and how to protect the wealth. And also doing in parallel my legal research work, and time to time I was teaching law, and time to time I need also to prepare my presentations and articles. And it was 2013, I think, that the European Court of Justice first time was asked to come up with some interpretation, explanation, what does it mean Bitcoin? Because it was a case from Sweden about paying VAT if the transaction was paid by the Bitcoin. And it was quite a challenge when judges, very conservative judges sitting in this forum needed to come up with some kind of legal arguments, how we will call, what does it mean, Bitcoin? And after that, of course, it was a lot of interest from all the legal practitioners, start digging, understanding what it is. And I also was asked by my colleagues, for the international conference, would you be interested to come up with a presentation, consumer protection and using digital currency? And then why not? It's interesting, So when I told so easily yes, actually, after that, I'm not saying that I regret it, but it took me a lot of effort because it's very, very technical. And I wrote down all these very, very strange terms in that moment about the forks and nodes and whatever, which I understand today, layer 1, layer 2, and all this, So for me, being a lawyer, so it was really quite a challenge. But happily, I had my professors, colleagues, and computer science department. So I spent several hours trying to understand also. And I prepared my article, and in order to go on the stage and to present, I also thought it wouldn't be real if I will just will be presenting based on some theoretical aspects. So what I did, I tried to buy Bitcoin myself to download application, to become a user and do this transaction, and digging, taking, with a finger every next step you have to go. I figured it out also from the legal perspective. What are the risks if I'm receiving full and objective information in order to pass the decision? How I would be protected as a consumer, what would be my rights, who will be responsible, is there somebody to whom I will address my claim in a case if something goes wrong. And after that, of course, it was a quite interesting article and presentation where I figured out that there are so many legal aspects involved. And after that, of course, so here I'm today also trying to, I'm happy to be involved in a lot of the new ideas and helping and making structure correct from the very beginning. So.
Amazing. So you have had a first-hand experience of using using Bitcoin before you got into it. Yeah, that's amazing. Rico, so Rico is the CEO of Sanctum Global Ventures. He has been investing across different asset classes, different sectors, and for the last 20 years. So I think he has experienced the evolution of the whole technology, starting from the dot-com era to blockchain to Bitcoin, and now when we are talking about mass adoption. What are your thoughts on this?
I believe the crypto or blockchain ecosystem went through a roller coaster over the last couple of years, especially since 2017, the ICO winter. It was an age where we see a lot of white papers flying around and people raise funds like no tomorrow, and then everything just crashed. I think people came to realize that investing, is quite similar to the dot-com bubble ages, where you can't just invest in any, projects or any business blindly because of white paper. And more investors like us are looking at MVP, proof of concept, and the team players and how committed they are and how much effort they put in to actually make sure the product really works. And most importantly, what problem does the technology or the business solve? So having all these experiences over the last couple of years, we went on to do more incubations, where we became more aggressive in seeking for good projects, because I think it was a time where you walk into conferences, you see everyone being exchangers and everyone being traders. There's not many projects operators anymore during conferences. It became a problem where it's hard to find even a good project is hard. And, if you want to look for a unicorn in the blockchain space, it's almost impossible. So I think that's where we got from that end to this other end. And we realized that the problem is adoption. The problem was we do not have enough coders who understand the problems in the IT world and in the blockchain space, and understanding it to be innovative enough to create new products from it. So I think we went on to work with a lot of coders, especially from the traditional space, in the tech space, and ask them to look into all these possibilities and explore opportunities to actually build something that's not being built in the crypto space. I think that's where a lot of tech people came in and became a technopreneur. On our hand, we were also looking at more impact entrepreneurs coming into the space. We realized that not only young kids or young graduates should come into the space, we should have more experienced real entrepreneurs, adopting the technology. So we have a lot of seasoned investor, VC turn social entrepreneur coming in to build impact-based crypto projects. So I am very delighted and very excited about the space, especially the last 2 years, especially over the pandemic. We saw a lot of new ideas and innovations pouring into the space. Thank you.
Yeah. You actually rightly mentioned that, from the last 3 or 4 years, the way it has evolved from investing through a white paper to actually having an MVP as a requirement. This is how it has evolved. And a lot of times, I've been into the crypto ecosystem for the last 4 years now. A lot of times people ask me and tell me that it's just a white paper and rough fundraising, nothing else. And I keep on telling them always that every industry has to go through a cycle. When gold gold emerged as an asset class, it went through its own volatility. When currency evolved, it had its own cycle. Every industry, every sector has to go through that process. And blockchain is not an exception. It has to go through that. And now we are seeing, they were gone by the days when you just had to write a white paper and go to the investors and say, okay, give me tens and twenties of millions of dollars. Now we have seen how the panels today, let's not go far. The panels today had actually delivered products. There were exchanges that were already running for last 3 years. There were products that have been running for 4 years. And that's how the industry has evolved over the time. Rico, and Baiba, you have been in the industry since 2015, and you have seen that cycle. So Bitcoin as an asset class, that was a statement always. We used to hear in all these conferences. And today, and the last 2 days, and even in the conferences that that are happening, the title has become mass adoption. So from Bitcoin as an asset class to crypto mass adoption, How do you see this journey, and how do you see this going? I mean, what's the way forward from there? And what are your suggestions to the entrepreneurs, young or experienced, who are planning to build?
I think, so it's like in all kind of new things. If you look back, so we're saying it's a big technological revolution. If we look in a history, it's actually not the first time when we are, surprised with some technological revolutionary So if you go back, 1958 was a year when the first credit card was issued, back in California. And you think that was easy? You think that people after this first time they saw this small plastic card, everybody was keen saying, I don't need cash. All my problems will be solved by the card. No, it took quite a long time to convince people that this small plastic card actually can replace cash money, right? So it's all about building trust, all about, credibility. And today, if we have some like parallels a little bit, also there's so many projects, so many these cryptocurrencies, so many, it's not only Bitcoin and or Ethereum, so there's so many of them. And they are competing in a market. So we have the same people have access how to convince to choose one or another. So, and it's about, again, trust and credibility, stability, what we can ensure that they trust. And then we go back to this document, what we call white paper. I would say it's a constitution of the project, legally speaking, so, and that's why you have to put a lot of effort to really draft and make a very good white paper and tokenomics and everything. Because today also, if we look, we had great projects, no doubt. But when you will go to investor, so investors are very mature today in a crypto, they really look very, very carefully. They study, they look after every single number you have it. And that's why it already shows the industry and ecosystem is very mature. And maybe the struggle is more with like a little bit older generation. If you look to for example, if I look to my children, one is 24, it's not children, he's already grown man, or 15 old. For them, all the time, everything that relates to digitalization is so simple. For us, it's still sometimes I challenge myself to deal with some of the technological, some solutions. But for them, I think it's just, it comes quite logically. But at the same time, to promote our results and projects, we have to be active. We have to promote what we are doing.
So from my point of view, the adoption is a very important factor in any projects. I have seen some projects raise money and they didn't do enough PR marketing and promotions in the space. And no one was trading. They were just market making themselves for 1 or 2 years. Eventually, they need to delete themselves from the exchanges. So I think we should take Bitcoin as an example. How Bitcoin became, so mass adopted. In even public listed company would put their reserve to hedge on Bitcoin than their own currency like US dollar. When the OGs started this whole thing back then, they actually give out free Bitcoins to people. My business partner, Dunson, and his group of OGs gave up a few million Bitcoins at the time when it was still cheap, right? When you think about it today, that guy who bought a pizza with Bitcoin and compared to these OGs who actually gave up Bitcoins to create adoption, what is a pizza? But you see, the OGs do not think that way because in order to create adoption, the best way to let you use it, like what she did. She wanted to try and experience it, to feel it, to trust it. That interaction created her trust. And today, she's a firm believer of Bitcoin. So the OGs understand this since day one. So for any entrepreneurs who once launch a utility token, where is your utility? Is it a real utility or is it not a real utility? I think that's a very important factor that that we see whether this is a scam or a real project. Bitcoin was being called a scam for so many years because so many people didn't believe that it's a real adoption. But today, how many people still call it a scam? Is it because of Elon Musk tweeting about it? Is it because Elon Musk tweeted about Dogecoin and say, oh, Dogecoin is real now? So it's a very interesting adoption where, hey, how does this whole economics work? As a token economics, the architect of the token is so important. And how is it related to your business model? How many tokens should you mint, and how should it be minted? What sort of mechanism are you looking at? Is it a proof of space, proof of work, proof of whatever the proof is a lot of potential that is still to be discovered. And that's what we are looking at in this space. The young kids at 13, 14, 15 years old could be making a lot of profits by playing some games. And it's proven to work, and that became a token economics for the younger generation. And for the older generation, they can still invest and treat it as a trade thing, but most of them are getting to buy NFTs as well. So it's not an age thing anymore. It's about how consciousness comes about, that you actually open yourself to embrace a new financial system. I think that is more important. And I will urge all the entrepreneurs to open your mind and explore all the opportunities around. You can tokenize a lot of things, but how can you make sure that it's being widely adopted and mass adoption can be created? I believe India is the next bull market in the crypto space, because it's been so highly regulated and it was so challenging for the last 2 to 3 years. And suddenly, hey, the door is open. And how many people actually jump into a bandwagon to open a 1.2 billion market, right? At the same time, politically, you look at how the Chinese government is checking down, and we are learning a lot from how the Chinese government check down all the operations in the crypto space. So the adoption is also highly related to the political systems in a country, a regulatory environment of country. So when entrepreneurs look at any business model, they need to study the trend and the policymakers in their home country, and do not do anything illegal, right? We have seen exchanges operating in different regions, but using different jurisdiction licenses, as risk mitigation procedures, right? Hey, that's what entrepreneurs always think of. If Binance is being closed in UK, it's been closed in Malaysia recently, but it's still operating. That's the power of decentralization. How can any government close down a Bitcoin network, right? So it's not possible now that we say, because the OGs and the whole team of them has actually figured it out. If Bitcoin can do it, I think most of the other tokens can do it too.
A very specific question to Baiba. Baiba, you have been, so for those who do not know, she is a former Minister of Justice of Latvia and also a governing council member of Unidroid. So she has been, she knows the nitty-gritties of the legalities and the legal regulations and infrastructure. A lot of all these entrepreneurs are actually, some of them are afraid, and some of them think that ignorance is a bliss, and they do not take care of the legal regulations that surrounds the technology they're working on or the sector they're getting into. What would you suggest for them to have their approach? What should be their approach when they start thinking about making them compliant enough so that they do not face the wrath of the regulators?
Yeah, unfortunately, that happens with these creative minds. They have their great idea and they just move forward. In one moment, they think, so it's enough that I have an idea. I know how to realize my dream, set up my goals, and how to reach the goals. And if I look where we are today, and also again I come back to those projects which we've been introduced today, and also our project also from the very beginning. I think there's already advisors, accelerators like TDeFi, so we have already experienced. Once somebody comes with a great idea, we already know what to advise. You have to have legal advisor. You see, in every project there's somebody, legal advisor, there's financial business advisor, there is a marketing advisor. So already there is I would say there is already a trend in the industry how to build up the project, and I think it's absolutely correct. And what I'm saying, it's good that nobody requested to do like so. Industry itself figured it out that that's a way to go. And right now everybody does like so. Once there's the idea, already there's a suggestion, how you should move forward. And I would say that most of the projects which we see succeeding, they have those advisors, they have lawyers on board, and they're like every day, you know, trying to answer all these challenges and all these questions, either to be regulated in one or another jurisdiction, where will be my main auditorium, where I will go, what kind of services. So these are, yeah, all these questions, you know, are very important, which is a part of like white paper, part of the terms and conditions of every project.
Right. So it's actually very important to have a clear roadmap about how your legal setup would be before you move ahead, because we have seen in the past how great projects and some great platforms have faced the wrath of regulators and had to pay heavy fines, not naming them, but yeah, they had to pay heavy fines and had to close down their operations after running for two or 3 years. Rico, you have been working with entrepreneurs day in and day out. You have been investing in them and, you know, being an incubator and accelerator, you have been interacting with them. As much as this industry is young, the entrepreneurs are rather, I would call them inexperienced, not young, but inexperienced. What role do you think advisors and experienced advisors play in this ecosystem and contribute to the growth of these projects?
A very interesting question. I used to put myself as advisor. I realized that it's not easy to be an advisor. Entrepreneurs are people who are very creative and very daring to be entrepreneur. And they may be quite stubborn at times. So in order to guide them, it requires a lot of effort in understanding their mental constructs and how they logically process information and make a decision. So the most challenge that I have was that you teach them something or you share with them some information, and they went on to the other side of the path because they assume they know it. And it's like iceberg theory. You show them the iceberg, you something on the iceberg, and they arrive at the conclusion that, oh, it should be done that way. I think that's a challenge we had in incubation and acceleration, because in the crypto space, things move so quickly in lightning speed, we say, and there's no chance for them to actually stop and review and things like that. So it's about having the right team and the right experience and doing the right approach and strategies around executing things. Most of the projects spend like 6 months to a year to complete proof of concept, MVP, and then fundraise and so on and so forth. But nowadays, some of the projects spend like 3 months to complete this. So the concentration of all these processes in place, if they miss it, there will be consequences later on. And every entrepreneurs like to cut corners, to speed things up, to rush things through. And where is a balance? I always ask them, this is what you need to do. But you always look at that project raising 50 million, that project raising 20 million, but you never thought of how much effort has been put into so they can actually raise very successfully in a smooth process. A lot of work has been done in the back, and you can't see everything at the front. They may have made the mistake again and again for a few weeks before they arrive at one correct approach. A lot of experiment has been done to prove that this actually works. You can't just base on someone else's result and say, hey, Google did it, Amazon did it, I can do it too. You know what I mean? So I think that is what the entrepreneur should really look into, experience in this space where, learning is a process and there's hardly any shortcuts. And we have to go down the tough path sometimes to actually, be there and do it. And which is why most of the time we do not want to teach so much. I wouldn't say ourselves as advisor. And we realized that those were days where you have C1 project with like 20 advisors on it. How the hell the project is going to run with 20 advisors advising them, right? So lately we see that most projects have mainly 2 to 3 advisors. That's it, right? It's not about number game anymore. It's the quality of your advisors or the experts on the panel with the project. Another question that I always ask the team is, where are these experts from? How the hell we have like few thousand experts in the crypto space within like 2 years? Everyone came into the space and said, hey, I'm an expert, I'm an advisor, and la 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 la. Seriously, I dare not even call myself an expert. Until now, I'm still learning because the space is moving so quickly. And there's always a new terminology coming up every month. So we need to read a lot. We need to ask, we need to discuss, we need to brainstorm among the whole community to actually, you know, as a think tank, as a whole industry. So there's no right and wrong sometimes. And everyone is searching for the right path to succeed. So that is how competitive this market has been. Sometimes it's about personal relationship of how you can raise a fund or close a deal. Yes, but that person will not just invest because he trusts you or that turns out to be a good project. It's always about how solid the team is. The team is, the talent in that team is so important now. And we even start headhunting talents for the particular project globally so that they will have a very strong team moving forward for the next 3 to 5 years. We are treating all the startups and crypto projects as a real unicorn from the very beginning. Otherwise, they might just have a very good graph and eventually it will not scale anymore. It will just start going downhill. So I think that's where we are concerned with, especially when we work with so many institutional investors and strategy investors. It may look good at the start, but doesn't mean the project always goes strong. And this is a problem in the space now that we observe how many of them are still around after 5 years. You know, so I think that's where entrepreneurs should think of long term. Do not rush. If you're doing it right, you will still stand a chance to have a huge success. And success is a long-term thing. Yeah. It's not a short-term success where, well, you became a billionaire within an X amount of time. You went into the Forbes top billionaires, and we have a few of them already. You know, but that doesn't mean that you'll be successful. I think the success is not defined by how much money you have. The success is defined by how much friends and family, how much love you get in a space. Yeah.
That's a very important lesson. I think, yeah, that brings to us to an end to this great conference as well. But just to, you know, just taking a minute more, when you rightly mentioned that, you know, within 2 years of time, there are blockchain experts coming up. And a lot of times when I talk to these entrepreneurs, they tell me, I saw this guy, this was an evangelist, you know, this was an evangelist. So I keep telling them, whenever there's a LinkedIn headline saying Bitcoin or blockchain evangelist, raise your red flags, think about it again, and do your own due diligence before getting them on board, because everyone today calls himself an evangelist. And you also rightly pointed out one more thing, which I would actually emphasize on. Entrepreneurship is a journey. It's not an overnight success where you don't look out for project, don't look out for, you know, overnight successes and getting into Forbes 30 under 30 or 25 under 25. Live the journey, enjoy the journey, make friends, and, you know, as these esteemed panelists rightly mentioned out, focus on the key areas, focus on the legal setup, regulations, and I'm sure with all of these things in place, with the right ingredients, the project is bound to succeed. I think that brings us to an end to this conference. It was a great conference. Thank you so much, Rico. Thank you, Baiba, for your for taking our time and sharing your insights.
Thank you. And I just want to say that every challenge is, first of all, an opportunity, you know, so I think, you know, so